On a chilly afternoon in the heart of autumn, Emily wandered through the trails of Maplewood Park, leaves crunching beneath her worn hiking boots. The creek glistened under the fading sun, whispering secrets as the water danced its way over rocks. It was her favorite escape, a place where she could forget the stress of school and just breathe. As she ambled along the bank, her mind swam with a million thoughts about grades, friendships, and the pressure of being a senior. Suddenly, a loud splash broke her daydream. She hurried to the edge of the water, her eyes wide. It was then that she saw him. Jake, a boy from her class, was knee-deep in the creek, his laughter bouncing off the trees. He was trying to catch fish with his bare hands, a skill he claimed he had mastered. Emily watched, stifling a laugh. His hair was tousled and droplets glistened on his sun-kissed skin, barely catching the light. "Hey Jake," she called, her voice teasing but warm. He shouted back, his eyes sparkling with mischief. In a quick move, he stepped onto a slippery rock, but before she could react, his feet flew out from under him. With widening eyes, Emily watched him tumble backward, crashing into the water with an incredible splash. Laughter erupted from her, but it was cut short as she took a step closer to the water's edge to see if he was okay. That's when it happened. In her excitement and distraction, she lost her balance, her foot slipping off the edge of the bank. She felt the ground drop away as she tumbled, falling into the chill of the creek herself. The shock of the cold water enveloped her, making every nerve come alive. Sputtering, she gasped and flailed, desperately trying to regain her footing, but the current had other plans. Trees loomed over her and the rocky bottom sank beneath her feet like quicksand. Panic surged through her. Jake's voice cut through the chaos. He was there, right beside her, his hands reaching out. She could barely see through the splashes, her heart pounding in her chest. The truth hit her hard, she might drown. The fear was suffocating. Then she spotted his hand, extended towards her like a lifeline. It was warm, despite the chills surrounding them. With every ounce of strength, she reached out, her fingers grasping his. He pulled her closer, muscles straining against the water's pull. Together, they struggled to gain ground, pushing against the harsh current. Moments felt like hours as their eyes locked, a surge of trust passing between them. In that instant, Jake's face turned serious. "Just hold on to me." They fought the water, inching back towards the bank. The laughter and teasing from just moments ago felt like a distant memory. As they neared the edge, a rush of adrenaline sparked in Emily. She grasped onto a sturdy rock, bracing her body against it with all her might. Finally, with one last powerful pull, Jake heaved her out of the creek and onto the grassy bank. They both lay there for a moment, gasping for breath, water dripping from their clothes as the realization of what just happened settled in. Emily turned to Jake, her eyes wide. "Thank you," she breathed, still shaking but filled with an overwhelming rush of gratitude. A soft smile crept across Jake's face, but then both their laughter faded, replaced by the silent understanding of the moment they had just shared. The fear, the panic, it all melted away under the glow of the sunset. Jake asked, concern lacing his voice. Emily nodded, though she could still feel her heart racing. "Yeah, I think so." Instead of laughing at her, Jake stepped closer. "Hey, it happens." He shook his head with a grin, trying to lighten the mood. She wanted to return the smile, but found herself staring into his eyes, a storm of emotions swirling within her. It was strange how quickly everything could change, a slip, a fall, a rescue, and suddenly they stood on the edge of something new. The sun dipped lower, casting a golden light across the park. As they caught their breath, Emily began to feel a sense of closeness with Jake that she had never noticed before. It wasn't just the shared experience. It was the way his gaze didn't shy away, how he seemed to see her for the first time, beyond the girl he always joked with in class. "I guess we make quite a pair," she joked lightly, flicking water off her sleeve. Jake laughed, but it was soft, genuine. "Yeah, the creek do." They shared a moment of silence, both soaking wet and oddly comfortable. In that peaceful pause, Emily felt a connection grow, something deeper than friendship. It was then she realized how much she had admired him for so long, the way he carried himself, his humor, and that spark of kindness he just showed. Jake suggested, glancing downstream. Emily laughed again, her heart finally slowing, warmed by his presence. "Let's go." They stood up together, brushing off the grass and mud, the embarrassment replaced with a shared bond that felt electric. As they walked back down the trail, the woods alive with the sounds of nature, Emily sensed that their friendship was changing. It was moving somewhere deeper, somewhere exciting. Under the canopy of trees, they walked side by side, sharing bits of their lives. They talked about school, dreams, and silly moments that made them laugh. The fear of the creek seemed far away. Instead, a new kind of tension hung in the air, something exhilarating, something neither of them had expected. When they finally reached the park entrance, the streetlights flickered on, breaking the twilight darkness. Emily's heart sank a bit at the thought of saying goodbye. Jake asked, his eyes hopeful, as if they both were lingering on the edge of something greater than either could define. "Yeah," Emily replied, her voice steady. That night, as she lay in bed still drenched in the chill of the creek, her mind swirled with thoughts of Jake. She felt a warmth creeping in, a spark ignited by the shared moment. In the quiet of her room, she realized that falling into the creek was more than just a slip. It had altered the course of her world. She fell, yes, but he had offered his hand, his trust, his laughter, and now, a shared secret that bound them. She dreamed of tomorrow, of fresh starts and new beginnings intertwined with the boy who had caught her just in time. Days turned into weeks, and as they continued to meet and explore the park together, their bond only grew stronger. They shared pizza at the local cafe, made ridiculous bets on who could climb higher in the trees, and talked about everything from their favorite movies to their greatest fears. Every moment together felt charged, as if they were two pieces of a puzzle that finally fit. Emily found solace in Jake's presence, the kind of friendship that felt rare and precious. And there were times when she would catch him looking at her, not with the playful spark of a friend, but with something deeper and more meaningful. One evening, as the sun began to set, painting the sky a brilliant orange, they wandered back toward the creek. The water flowed gently, and Emily felt the memory of that day wash over her. Jake asked suddenly, his voice low and thoughtful. "Sometimes," Emily replied, smiling. He nodded, a seriousness in his gaze. "I wouldn't trade that moment for anything." Her heart fluttered at his words. They stood in silence for a moment, the air charged with unspoken feelings. Finally, Jake turned to her and said, "Emily, before he could finish, a loud splash interrupted their moment. A group of kids nearby had thrown rocks into the creek, their laughter ringing like bells. Emily laughed, shaking her head. "Some things never change," she said, but Jake only smiled. Emily's breath caught, the world around them blurred, and in that moment it was just the two of them standing on their bank, hands poised to reach out into a new adventure. Her heart raced again. "I think I might feel the same," she whispered, the truth spilling out like the water from the creek. Jake stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. The right answer hung in the air like a song yet to be sung. Without another word, they leaned in, a gentle touch between them, their hearts racing in sync. And when their lips met, soft, tentative, and full of promise, the world around them faded away, leaving only the warmth of their connection, a spark ignited by a simple tumble into the creek. The adventure had shifted its course, but it was just beginning. The sound of rushing water filled the air, but the tranquility of the creek was shattered in an instant. Emily, lost in her thoughts, had only a moment's warning before she felt the ground slip away beneath her feet. In the blink of an eye, she was falling, tumbling straight into the icy embrace of the creek. She gasped as the chill wrapped around her like a frigid blanket. The shock of the cold took her breath away. Panic surged through her as she flailed, desperately searching for something to hold on to. Instinct drove her to kick her legs to find solid ground, but the water was stronger, pulling her deeper, the current swirling like a wild beast. A voice broke through the chaos, cutting through her fear. It was Jake, that boy from school whose laughter echoed in her mind even now. She barely registered the surprise in his voice as she struggled against the current. He shouted, extending his arm toward her, his face a blend of concern and determination. Emily's heart raced as she spun around in the water. There he was, standing at the edge, chest deep in the creek, muscles straining as he reached towards her. She could see the resolve in his eyes. With every ounce of strength, she swam toward him, her limbs heavy and the water colder than she had ever imagined. Jake shouted, his voice steady. Emily bit her lip, pushing against the water. Every inch felt like a marathon, but she needed to reach him. Finally, their hands met. The warmth of his grip sent a shock through her body. He cried, pulling with all his might. The current fought back, but together they resisted, pulling as if life itself depended on it. With one powerful surge, Jake yanked her free from the water's grasp. They tumbled together onto the muddy bank, gasping for breath, hearts racing. For a moment, they simply lay there, the late afternoon sun spilling golden light over them, casting a glow on their faces. Jake's voice was filled with concern as he looked into her eyes, water dripping from his hair and splattering onto the ground. Emily blinked, overwhelmed by what had just happened, the rush of emotion, the sheer intensity of the moment. "I think so," she breathed, still shaking as adrenaline coursed through her veins. The world around them faded, leaving just a pulse of connection. It was strange how in a blink of fear, something so ordinary had transformed into something profound. It felt like they had crossed an invisible boundary between friends and something more. Jake grinned, trying to lighten the mood. He laughed, though there was still a hint of seriousness in his eyes. "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that," Emily replied, her laughter mixing with his, flushing out the remnants of fear. They both sat up, the cool breeze swirling around them, brushing away the shock. Feeling bold, she added, "And to think I was just coming here to relax. You just made it way more exciting," Jake said, shaking droplets from his hair like a puppy. His laughter was infectious, filling the space where tension had hung moments before. As they regained composure, Emily noticed how the sun began to sink lower in the sky, paints of pink and orange swirling together like a masterpiece. It struck her how quickly everything had changed, how a simple afternoon had turned into a moment that felt life-changing. "I guess I owe you one," she said, wiping mud from her jeans, feeling a warmth pool in her chest. "Just doing what any friend would do," Jake replied, his tone casual, but his gaze lingered on her longer than necessary, a flicker of something that made her heart race again. They both stood, the creek behind them a reminder of the near disaster, now transformed into a new chapter. With a shared grin, they walked along the edge, enjoying the beauty around them, the cool air filled with possibilities. Jake asked, breaking the comfortable silence as they brushed aside branches and dodged the low-hanging limbs of trees. "Yeah, it's my favorite spot to think," Emily admitted, her voice softer now. "I get that," Jake replied. That easy connection between them deepened with each shared moment. The creek continued to bubble and flow beside them, a perfect harmony to the budding friendship that felt so fragile yet vibrant. As twilight approached, they cleared the edge of the park and found a small clearing. They leaned against a sturdy tree trunk, side by side, watching the sunset paint the horizon vibrant with color. The laughter of children faded into the distance, leaving behind a soft hum in the air. "I never expected today to go this way," Emily said, breaking the tranquility, her voice thoughtful. "I mean falling in the creek," Jake chuckled softly. "Life's funny like that." They exchanged glances, the world around them brimming with a sense of adventure. Emily felt a rush of boldness stir within her. "You know, if I hadn't fallen, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. You'd just be that cute guy from class, and I'd be..." He turned toward her, interest dancing in his eyes. Colors deepened in the fading light, but it was his playful tone that made her laugh. I guess. Their eyes met again, laughter bubbling in the air. The atmosphere was charged, a thrill hanging between them. Before either could think too much, Emily took a breath, her heart racing. "Well, maybe you'll have to join me next time I come here." Jake smiled, his eyes bright. "Absolutely." Hours slipped by in what felt like mere minutes, the sunset giving way to a star-filled sky above them. The air turned cooler, and as evening settled in, an easy comfort enveloped them. Jake broke the silence, his voice steady yet vulnerable. Emily pondered for a moment, her gaze shifting to the stars. "Honestly, I'm still figuring it out. There's so much pressure to have it all figured out, but I feel lost sometimes. I want to travel, see the world, but..." Jake nodded, understanding seeping into his expression. "It's scary, but what if your boring job leads you somewhere amazing, or what if you find a way to make it exciting?" She couldn't help but smile at that. "True." "Exactly," he said, eyes glinting with encouragement. The space between them hummed, a soothing energy that felt like a promise. "Hey, you're good at this advice-giving thing," Emily quipped, her voice teasing yet genuine. "Or I could just be your personal life coach," he replied with a mock-serious expression that made her laugh. Emily felt something shift within her, a sense of connection, of camaraderie that felt rare, something that she had yearned for but hadn't expected to find so swiftly. What had started as a frightening moment in the creek had turned into an unforgettable evening under the stars, with the boy who had plucked her from harm's way now standing beside her, a beacon of warmth and understanding. As the moon cast a silvery glow over the grove, Jake turned to her, his voice soft. Her heart raced as she caught his gaze, a shift in the air around them. "Yeah," she whispered, feeling the weight of the moment. He reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I'm glad you fell into that creek." Time seemed to halt as she felt the warmth of his touch linger, a connection crackling between them that felt undeniable. With every heartbeat, anticipation built, changing the circumstances around them once more. "I'm glad too," she admitted, her voice barely a murmur. Jake leaned in slightly, the space between them charged with possibility. But before they could navigate that line, a loud splash broke the silence. A raccoon had jumped into the water nearby, sending ripples across the surface and shattering the moment like glass. Jake leaned back, laughter erupting like wildfire. Emily burst into laughter, her heart still racing with the lingering thrill of the moment. As the laughter echoed through the night, the weight of unspoken emotions hung in the air like stars overhead, glimmering with possibilities. There, beneath the vastness of the universe, they both found something special, something born from a simple fall, in a moment spent extending a hand. As the night wore on and they shared stories and dreams beneath the stars, Emily realized that sometimes unexpected turns in life led to the most beautiful destinations. And when Jake smiled at her, the warmth in his eyes told her that this was just the beginning of their own adventure together. The sun hung low in the sky, casting golden hues across Maplewood Park. Birds soared overhead, filling the air with their cheerful songs. Emily strolled along the winding trail, feeling the warmth of autumn settle in around her. This was her sanctuary, a place where she could escape the chaos of her life, school, friends, endless pressure. It was her favorite spot to think. Today was supposed to be a peaceful day, just her and the soothing sounds of the creek. She imagined herself perched on her usual rock, legs dangling over the water, allowing the gentle flow to wash away her worries. But then she heard laughter, a boisterous, carefree sound that drew her attention. Curiosity piqued, Emily followed the sounds until she reached the little clearing where the creek widened. There, standing on the slippery bank, was Jake, her classmate, the boy everyone thought was so charming and confident. His laughter echoed around him as he tried to catch fish with his bare hands. She called, unable to contain herself. Jake turned, grinning widely. He shouted back, shaking out his hands as if he'd just finished a tough workout. "You know, I hear fish are not fans of bare hands," Emily replied, stepping closer, enjoying the playful banter. As she stepped cautiously along the creek's edge, she felt a rush of excitement. Their friendship had always been lighthearted, but something felt different today. Maybe it was the light in his eyes or the way the sun glinted off the water. Suddenly he lost his footing, slipping on a wet rock, arms flailing as he fell backward into the creek with a loud splash. Emily gasped, part surprise and part laughter bubbling up inside her, but just as quickly that laughter turned to concern. He popped back up, laughter ringing out amidst the water droplets flying around him. He managed, spluttering as he wiped water from his eyes. Emily rushed to the edge of the bank, heart racing. The sight of him struggling slightly against the current sent a chill down her spine. He smiled, the playful glint never leaving his eyes, but there was something serious underneath his bravado, an awareness of his surroundings that reminded Emily of how nothing should be taken lightly near the water. As she leaned in closer to help him, the ground slipped beneath her feet. In a flash, she felt the earth vanish and suddenly found herself tumbling into the icy water alongside him. Shock engulfed her entirely. The cold made her gasp, spoiling the laughter that had just filled the air. She flailed instinctively, panic setting in as her feet searched for stability that wasn't there. But through the chaos, she saw Jake's face flash with alarm. He lunged towards her, the laughter gone now, replaced by urgency. Time slowed, everything felt surreal. She could think of nothing but the icy grip of the creek around her. Emily swam frantically, her heart pounding as she fought against the tug of the water. She saw his outstretched hand, strong and inviting, and with all her strength she reached for him. Their fingers met, warmth colliding with the cold. He shouted, pulling her towards him with incredible force. It felt like an eternity, their slippery grip precarious as the current pushed against them. As they both fought to find solid ground, Emily could feel everything, the fear, the rush of adrenaline, the extraordinary power of his hand wrapped around hers. It was a lifeline. With a final surge, Jake pulled her close, his footing steadying as he yanked her up onto the bank. They landed together in a heap of water and mud, gasping, their eyes wide with disbelief. Jake's voice broke the silence, urgency and relief tangled together. "I think so," Emily replied, her voice a shaky whisper, still reeling from the shock. She pulled herself into a sitting position, feeling the chill of the creek begin to set in. "We both just took a dive," Jake said, a hesitant smile finding its way back to his face. Emily blinked, still processing the whirlwind of events as she looked at him. His shirt was soaked and plastered to his skin, droplets glistening in the fading light, and yet even in this messy state, he carried an undeniable charm. "You saved me," she said softly, her heart fluttering. "It's okay," he interrupted, brushing mud from his cheek. "I'd do it again in a heartbeat." It was just a joke, yet something shifted in her chest, a surprising warmth spreading where there had been panic moments before. In that instant, Emily realized how quickly their situation had transformed. A frightening plunge into the creek had somehow led to the promise of something more. They lingered there on the bank, the chaos of the moment edging away as reality set back in. They were two ordinary teens covered in mud and soaked to their core, but the connection between them felt extraordinary. "Guess we make quite the pair," Emily joked, a grin breaking through her uncertainty as she pushed her soggy hair out of her face. "Definitely," Jake agreed, his cheerful demeanor shining through even in their messy state. As they began to get back on their feet, Emily felt herself warming to the moment even more. Maybe it was the proximity or the laughter that still sparkled in his eyes, but she felt something new whispering behind their playful banter, something honest and thrilling. They stood side by side, glancing at each other every now and then, realizing how stupidly easy it was to simply be together. For the first time, Emily noticed the way his jawline caught the fading light and how his laughter seemed to bounce off the trees around them, leaving a trail of sparks in the air. Jake asked, breaking her train of thought and turning serious again. Emily nodded, entranced by the way the moment shifted. She felt a magnetic pull toward him, a longing sparked by everything they had just experienced. As they walked back along the trail, everything felt charged and electric. The conversation swayed from lighthearted banter to deeper conversations punctuated by laughter, the way close friends do when they're beginning to find something more. Jake asked, glancing at her. "Yeah," she admitted, her heart racing under his gaze. "It's my escape, it calms my mind. It's my adventure," he smiled, his eyes glinting with mischief. Emily felt a connection spark even more brightly. His adventurous spirit ignited something inside her, a sense of exploration she craved but never embraced fully. As they reached the secluded spot, a flattened patch of grass near the water's edge, they dropped down, breathless and exhausted but alive with excitement. The sun dipped lower, dusk enveloping them in a soft blanket of shadows and colors. "Wow, it's beautiful here," she said, peering at the reflection of the fading light on the water. "It really is," he murmured, staring at her. Her heart skipped a beat. Did he really just say that? She felt something flutter in her chest, a combination of nerves and exhilaration. "Jake," she started, but the words tangled in her throat, overwhelmed by the weight of uncharted feelings. He interrupted, his tone growing serious. "Today it hit me. I really care about you, Emily." The air thickened with a hush, both of them sitting in the reality of what had just been voiced. Emily felt her heart respond, pounding as hope fluttered inside her. I think I care about you too, she replied quietly, a brave admission that sent a wave of courage through her. Jake smiled, that warmth in his eyes deepening. Good. It felt like a revelation, that beautiful convergence of possibility and hope, and in that moment of vulnerability, everything shifted again, weaving a new thread in their story. Well, I'd like to explore that, if you're up for it, Emily said, her smile widening. I am, he replied with a grin that made her heart leap, a shared understanding passing between them like a secret. As the night fell, they talked long into the darkness, the cool air dancing around them while the stars began to twinkle overhead. The tangled thoughts of school and pressures slipped away, leaving only the soothing cadence of their voices and the vibrant connection weaving tighter between them. With each shared laugh and tentative touch, they became closer, the weight of the day transforming into a celebration. Two souls navigating uncharted territory, fueled by the unexpected twists life had thrown their way. And as Emily leaned back against the grass, watching the constellations sparkle above, she knew that she had found something beautiful in that moment of partnership forged in the icy embrace of the creek, a bond that had deepened through trust and shared adventure. In the simplicity of where they sat, laughter mixing with the gentle sounds of nature, a quiet promise hung softly in the air. They both felt it, the sweet tension of what was to come, illuminated by the soft glow of dawn yet to break. The creek rushed on beside them, carrying with it the stories of new beginnings, the thrill of falling, and the promise of hands held firmly together. And she had no doubt that this would be just the beginning of their greatest adventure yet. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over Maplewood Park. The air was thick with the sweet smell of blooming flowers, and the sound of laughing children echoed in the distance. Emily trudged along the winding pathway, feeling the warmth of summer pressing against her skin. Today was meant to be uneventful, a welcome escape from the sleepless nights spent cramming for finals. All she wanted was a moment to herself near the creek, a place to think, to breathe. But as she approached the sparkling water, she spotted him. Jake, the boy from school, was perched on a rock at the edge of the creek, laughing and splashing water like a carefree child. His laughter filled the air, bright and infectious. It was the kind of laugh that could make anyone smile, even on their worst day. Emily paused, her heart fluttering unexpectedly. She didn't quite understand this feeling, but she felt drawn to him. She called, teasing as she approached him. Jake looked up, his grin widening. Actually, yes, he flashed her a cocky look, then dove back toward the water, arms outstretched. Right, Emily scoffed, rolling her eyes. But before she could say anything more, Jake lost his balance, his feet slipping on the wet stone, and with a hilarious yelp, he fell backward into the creek with an enormous splash. Water sprayed everywhere, making Emily laugh uncontrollably. He called out, giggling as he emerged, sputtering and drenched, the shock on his face dissolving into laughter. He shouted back, shaking water from his hair, an endearing foolishness radiating from him. But as Emily leaned forward, the edge of the bank crumbled beneath her feet. Horrified, she felt herself lose control, her heart racing as she too tumbled headfirst into the cold water. The shock hit her like a wave, pulling her under. Panic flooded through her as she flailed, unheard screams tearing at her. It was like the world turned upside down, and she just needed to find the surface. In the chaos, she spotted Jake thrashing in the water, eyes wide with a mix of shock and determination. He shouted, fear creeping into his voice. Just as she thought she'd drown, she locked eyes with him. He was right there, reaching out. Panic no longer clouded her vision as her instinct kicked in. She stretched her arm toward him, their fingers nearly touching, just a little further. His voice was urgent yet calm, pulling her from the darkness of her fear. With the current pulling at her, she summoned every bit of strength left in her. Finally, she felt his warm hand grasp hers, the solidness grounding her as he pulled her toward him. Together, they fought against the current, struggling to find their footing. With one final surge, he yanked her onto the bank, collapsing together in the mud, gasping for breath. Jake's eyes searched her face, concern replacing the playful grin that had been there moments before. I think so, she panted, still shaken as adrenaline coursed through her. All she could think was how they had both just tumbled into the creek, a ridiculous beginning to a much deeper connection. He managed, a hesitant smile returning, but beneath that grin, she could see the worry in his eyes. Next time I'll stick to the dry bank, she said, forcing a chuckle, feeling embarrassment rise in her cheeks. But it was mixed with something warmer, a strange thrill at having gone through this unexpected moment with him. As they gathered themselves, the cool breeze rustled the leaves above, and the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the park. They both sat up, shivering slightly, but laughter filled the air again, the joyous sound of two young people navigating a chaotic moment together. Your fishing skills need some work, Emily quipped, shaking water from her hair. Jake laughed, wiping mud from his shirt, and as she watched him, that flutter in her chest returned. But hey, it was worth it to see you going after me. They exchanged glances, a spark igniting between them, something fragile yet exhilarating. The world around them faded into the background. All Emily could focus on was the warmth radiating from Jake. You know, I didn't think you'd be the type to take such risks, she said playfully, but there was a seriousness behind her words. Yeah, well, even the composed ones have their moments, he admitted, his tone softening. I guess I just got carried away. The laughter settled and a strange vulnerability enveloped them. In that moment something shifted and it felt significant, like they shared a secret no one else knew. The sun dipped lower, painting the creek in hues of orange and pink. As they caught their breath, Emily realized how quickly everything had changed. A slip, a fall, and suddenly they were intertwined in an experience that felt sacred. As the sky darkened around them, Jake nudged her shoulder teasingly. I guess we could head home, but I'd much rather stay here a little longer, she replied, looking out over the water, the gentle burble of the creek calming her racing heart. She wanted to savor this moment, the unexpected adventure and the connection that had sparked to life. Same here, Jake said, a hint of warmth in his voice. Let's enjoy this calm before school starts again. Emily nodded, feeling the weight of reality pressing against them. The end of summer loomed, and with it the impending stress of another school year. Jake replied, his eyes focused on her, the playfulness giving way to something deeper. Not really, she admitted, a hint of anxiety creeping in. Jake frowned slightly but then leaned closer. You're not alone in that, a lot of people feel lost. His encouragement washed over her like a soothing balm. Thanks, Jake, she mumbled, the weight in her chest lifting a bit. As the conversation continued, they began to share dreams and fears, the distance between them shrinking. Each word revealed more about themselves, weaving together a tapestry of understanding. She found solace in his honesty, the way he didn't shy away from admitting he felt just as uncertain. He asked, his voice low and contemplative. I don't know, Emily admitted. Part of me wants to explore different places, see new things, but part of me worries about leaving. Yeah, I get it, Jake replied, his expression serious. But what if you discover something amazing? His words hung in the air, filled with promise. Emily felt a flicker of excitement in her chest. Jake met her gaze, eyes lighting up with that infectious spark. I can do that, she said, a grin spreading across her face. And as they spoke, a feeling of connection blossomed between them, a promise crafted between laughter and shared hopes. The night wore on, the stars shimmering above like tiny diamonds scattered across a dark canvas. They settled into a comfortable silence, occasionally breaking it with snippets of laughter and teasing remarks. The world around them faded into a soft whisper, leaving just the two of them, a pair discovering the magic of each other's company. Emily asked, trying to lighten the mood. Like jumping off the swing into the creek. Jake laughed loudly, the sound echoing across the creek. How could I forget? Yeah, and now I'm falling into the creek all over again, she said, shaking her head. Or maybe you just want to keep saving me, he replied with a wink, that playful glimmer in his eyes. She felt her cheeks flush again, realizing how easily they navigated the banter, layers of vulnerability and honesty unfolding. Funny how things come full circle, she added, savoring the moment. As the moonlight shimmered on the creek's surface, Emily turned serious again. Thank you for being there for me today. Jake nodded, his expression thoughtful. Of course. Friends, she echoed softly, the word resting on her lips, but somewhere within something shifted deeper. This felt more than friendship, a layer of connection blooming beneath the surface. Hey, let's make a pact, Jake suddenly suggested, breaking her thoughts. Emily's heart swelled at the idea. I love that, he replied, his eyes alight with challenge. She said with enthusiasm. Deal, he held out his hand to seal the agreement, that bright, mischievous grin lighting up his face once again. As their hands clasped together under the moonlight, Emily felt a spark race up her arm, warmth spreading through her chest. They both lingered for a moment, the warm pressure of their hands clinging to the promise they had just made. Next summer, let's do something wild, she declared, excitement coursing through her. Absolutely, Jake agreed, his eyes shining with possibilities. In that moment, under the shimmering stars, with their hearts racing and dreams stretching wide before them, Emily knew that this was just the beginning. With the creek rippling beside them, the world felt open and full of adventure. She realized that sometimes the unexpected falls lead to lasting connections, leading to promises made under the endless sky. And as they continued to share hopes and laughter, the bond between them solidified, deeper and richer than either of them could have imagined. Jake's presence, she felt alive, ready to face whatever adventure lay ahead. On a warm afternoon, as the sun dipped toward the horizon, Emily found herself wandering aimlessly along the creek in Maplewood Park. The water sparkled like diamonds dancing in the light, inviting and serene. She had come here to escape the weight of exams looming over her, to breathe and reconnect with herself. All she wanted was to sit by her favorite rock and let the worries of high school drift away with the gentle current. But as she made her way towards the familiar spot, she noticed movement. A splashing sound broke the tranquility, and her curiosity piqued. A few feet away, she spotted Jake, the boy everyone admired for his effortless charm. He was channeling some sort of fishing guru, laughing heartily as he splashed the water with his hands, trying to catch something, anything. Hey, Emily called out, amusement lining her voice. Jake looked up, his eyes gleaming with mischief. Of course. He wiggled his fingers dramatically before diving back into his fruitless mission. Emily shook her head, laughing. Good luck with that. But before she could register what was happening, Jake's foot slipped on a slick rock hidden beneath the surface. Time seemed to freeze as she watched him tumble backward with a surprising grace, landing splash first into the creek. His laughter turned into a startled yelp as water sprayed everywhere like an exploding fountain. He shouted, emerging with his hair plastered to his forehead, a mix of shock and delight in his eyes. Emily doubled over, laughter spilling from her as she fought off the urge to tease him. That was until her own foot slipped on the muddy bank. Everything happened so fast. One moment she was upright, and the next she felt the ground give way beneath her. She plunged into the creek, the icy water enveloping her like a cold embrace. The shock took her breath away. The creek's current knocked her off balance and she went under, panic rising in her chest. Her heart raced as she flailed and struggled to resurface. Everything blurred for a moment, a whirl of water, chaos, and fear. But then she heard him. Emily, Jake's voice cut through her panic like a lifeline. She fought her way to the surface and saw him, his face a mask of determination. The shoreline seemed far away, but instinct kicked in. With all her might, she reached toward him, her fingers stretching desperately through the water. He shouted, his voice firmly anchored in the chaos. His outstretched hand felt warm and solid against the cold water surrounding her. She grasped it tightly, the shock fading for a heartbeat, focus pouring into the space between them. Together they fought against the current, muscles straining as they both tugged and pulled as if defying the very elements that sought to separate them. With one powerful jerk, Jake yanked her out of the water and onto the bank. They landed together in a messy heap, gasping for breath, water streaming from their hair and clothes. His voice was a mixture of concern and laughter, an oddly comforting blend. Wow, that was not how I planned my day, Emily sputtered, breathless and wide-eyed. She instinctively pushed her wet hair out of her face, half laughing, half gasping. Jake chuckled, still catching his own breath while studying her expression. The sun gleamed behind him, casting an almost ethereal halo around his damp hair. Emily sighed, relief washing over her. No, not at all, I was just looking for peace and quiet. Then poof, their laughter echoed through the park, the sound mixing with the gentle water flowing behind them. But a deeper current was also running beneath the surface, one that neither of them acknowledged. As they sat there side by side, Jake's stare felt heavy, almost magnetic. We really make a great team, he finally said, a playful grin settling on his lips. Emily felt her cheeks warm. Was he joking, or was there something deeper? Yeah, a dream team, she replied, playfully nudging him. Jake ran a hand through his hair, sending a spray of water flying. Emily raised an eyebrow. You fell and pulled me down into the water. He looked at her, his expression shifting slightly, seriousness flickering through the playful barrier. But we survived. Epic, she laughed softly. But then the laughter faded, giving way to a moment of quiet understanding. They were both soaked and muddy, but it felt like more a shared experience that transcended the absurdity of the situation. As the sun started to set, the golden hour cast a warm glow over everything. Emily let herself sink into the tranquility, her heart racing but comfortable. She had always admired Jake from a distance, the charismatic way he moved through life. But now, sitting here, she felt an undeniable connection blooming, a friendship tinged with something deeper. You know, I've always thought you were brave for trying out for the soccer team, she said suddenly, surprised by the confession as it left her lips. Jake shrugged but couldn't hide the blush rising on his cheeks. Must be nice, Emily replied softly. He countered quickly, looking straight into her eyes. It just takes a plunge. Her heart fluttered at his words. I guess that's true, she murmured. He smiled knowingly, as if he had been struck by a revelation. You just have to believe in yourself. The gravity of his words wrapped around her like a warm blanket. She sensed they were no longer just talking about the creek. At that moment, a soft breeze rustled the leaves, mingling with the sound of the creek. The world seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of them, suspended in time. He asked, breaking the spell but not moving to leave. Yeah, let's dry off somehow, Emily laughed, grateful for the shared warmth and the sense of refuge they had created. As they stood slowly, Jake brushed mud off his clothes and Emily followed suit. Together, they walked down the creek, their laughter spilling into the air, echoing through the trees. Jake asked suddenly, his eyes lit up with excitement. Emily asked, intrigued, Yeah, I promise it's worth it. With a lightness in the air, Jake led her down a hidden trail that wound deeper into the woods. The vibrant greens and browns enveloped them as they pushed aside branches, the laughter still flowing freely between them. Jake paused, pushing aside a thick bush to reveal a small clearing. It was breathtaking, a secluded spot with sunlight streaming through the trees, illuminating a deeper pool of the creek, perfectly still and inviting. Emily gasped, overwhelmed by the beauty. I come here to think, Jake said quietly, stepping into the clearing. The water's surface mirrored the sky above, framed by trees swaying gently. She teased lightly, but there was a deeper curiosity woven into her words. Jake chuckled, sometimes, but mostly about life. He asked earnestly, stepping closer to him. He paused, taking a moment, looking thoughtful. Honestly, I want to travel the world, experience everything. That sounds incredible, Emily said, feeling her own dreams mingle with his. His eyes sparkled with warmth and connection. She raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Yes, a pact to chase our dreams together, to dive into everything life throws at us. Her heart raced at the prospect. This was a different kind of adventure, promise to each other. "Okay then, it's decided," he grinned. They clasped hands, sealing their pact, and a jolt of electricity surged between them. At that moment, the world outside this hidden nook seemed to disappear altogether. As they stood there, holding onto each other's hand, the sun dipped lower, casting an ethereal glow around them. Time felt infinite, and the air buzzed with their unspoken thoughts, each keeping secrets they were only beginning to explore. Emily felt a shift in the air, something tangible lingering. Was it just joy, or was it that deeper pull, that raw connection she had never allowed herself to entertain before? She wanted to let it blossom, to see where it could lead. "Let's come back here whenever we need to think," she suggested, breaking the silence that enveloped them. "Definitely," Jake replied, his smile closer than ever. With a playful spark in her eyes, Emily nudged him lightly. With laughter ringing out, they stepped back from the edge of contemplation, beckoning excitement that lay ahead. The challenges of high school, along with the mundane worries of life, felt small against the backdrop of their newfound bond. As they began to head back, walking alongside the creek, it was almost as if the universe had opened up a door just for them. Emily saw it now, the beauty in taking risks, in diving into the unknown, and the magic that awaited when it came to friendship and maybe something more. With Jake by her side, she felt more alive than ever, ready to take on the world and embrace its wonders, fears, and triumphs, all wrapped up in the promise of a hand offered in moments of need. And as Emily took that step, armed with the courage that came from believing in herself and the connection forged in swirls of water and laughter, she knew this was just the start of so much more. The creek hadn't just led her to a new friendship, it had shown her the way to dive headfirst into the adventure of life, hand in hand with someone who truly understood her. The sound of laughter echoed through Maplewood Park, mingling with the burbling water of the creek as Emily stepped onto the familiar gravel path. The sun hung high in the deep blue sky, casting vibrant splashes of color around her. She felt light, carefree. Today was meant to be a day of peace, a break from the chaos of school and the pressure of exams looming in the background. All she wanted was to find a quiet spot by the creek and let her worries drift away. But as she rounded a bend, she froze, her heart skipping a beat. Jake stood at the water's edge, just a few feet away, with his arms wide open as if he were welcoming the world. He was half-drenched, laughing loudly as he splashed around. Emily couldn't help but smile. He was always the life of the party, the boy who made everyone laugh, the one everyone liked. She called out, trying to suppress her laughter. Jake turned to her, a grin spreading across his face. "The best one," he flailed his arms dramatically, sending water spraying in every direction. Emily chuckled, the tension of the week melting away for a brief moment. He laughed, the sound bright and infectious. Suddenly his foot slipped on a wet rock and she watched in shock as he tumbled backwards into the creek with a spectacular splash. She screamed, a mix of laughter and concern rising in her throat. However, before she could catch her breath, a stray thought crossed her mind. If he could be silly, why couldn't she be playful too? With a mischievous grin, she took a step closer to the edge, but her foot slipped on the mud, and in an instant she plunged into the icy water beside him. The shock of the cold took her breath away. Panic surged as the current pulled at her, spinning her in circles. The water was swirling, freezing, and she felt herself going under. Instinctively, she kicked her legs, gasping for the surface. Jake's voice broke through the chaos, vibrant and urgent. She could barely see him through the splashes of water, but his strong voice anchored her. She reached out, but the current was wild, tugging at her, trying to drag her away. Desperation ignited within her, and she swam toward the sound of his voice. He shouted, and in that moment everything clicked. She saw his hand reaching toward her, warm and steady against the cold chaos surrounding her. With a deep breath, she focused, kicking harder, her fingers stretching out until they finally clasped around his. He pulled her toward him, his muscles straining against the current, but she felt the warmth of his strength, grounding her. With one powerful heave, he brought her close, together surging against the water's unforgiving grip, and they tumbled onto the muddy bank, breathless and soaked. Jake's voice was filled with genuine worry. Emily shook the water from her hair, her heart racing, confusion and adrenaline mingling in her chest. "I think so," she said, half laughing, half sobbing. "You look like a wet cat," he chuckled, brushing mud off his clothes, but his eyes remained serious. She met his gaze and something shifted in the air between them. They weren't just laughing at a funny situation anymore. In those moments of chaos, they had forged something new, something real. "Thanks for saving me," she whispered, her voice barely breaking the surface of their shared moment. Jake shrugged, the corners of his mouth lifting in another gleeful grin. As they wiped away the remnants of water and mud, Emily couldn't help but feel her heart race for another reason now. This wasn't just about falling into a creek, it was something deeper, like they were now intertwined in their own secret adventure. The sun was starting to dip in the sky, casting warm hues across the park. The air was cool against their damp skin. "You know, I've always thought you're kind of brave," Jake said, his tone shifting slightly. Emily frowned slightly, uncertainty creeping into her mind. He laughed lightly, shaking his head. "No, really, it takes guts to put yourself out there, to dive into the deep end." She cast her eyes down, the weight of his compliment stirring feelings within her that she hadn't expected. I suppose, she said slowly. Jake prodded, his gaze steady, encouraging. I want to travel, she confessed, her words almost tumbling out in a rush. He asked, leaning closer, genuine curiosity lighting up his features. Because I just don't know how, she admitted, vulnerability spilling over. Jake's expression softened. What if you fly? Something about his words rang true, like a bell tolling in her heart. Here they were, soaked and muddy, yet standing on the brink of something remarkable. They had taken that plunge together, hadn't they? Their eyes locked for a moment, the warm glow of the sun merging with the electricity in the air. For a heartbeat, Emily felt as if the world around them had faded away, leaving just the two of them caught in a moment of connection. Okay, I don't want to talk about my dreams at the creek anymore, she said, attempting to play it off as a joke, but the truth was more profound. Let's do something crazy instead. Jake looked at the large boulder slightly upstream, towering over the water. You mean jump from that? Why not? We've already splashed in the creek. Jake hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. It looks a bit, oh come on, we're already soaked. She urged, confidence surging within her like an unseen current. All right, he joked, his playful spirit buoying her own. With excitement coursing through her, Emily made her way to the rock, feeling exhilarated. She climbed up onto its surface, her heart pounding wildly as she looked down at the water below. Jake called out, standing firmly back on the bank, eyes fixed on her with a mix of anxiety and excitement. She shouted back, and without thinking too deeply, she launched herself off the rock, the air rushing past her in a thrilling blur. Time seemed to slow just before she hit the water, and in that heartbeat she only felt freedom, the exhilaration of leaping into the unknown. Her body sliced through the surface, the embrace of the creek cold but somehow thrilling. When she resurfaced, her laughter mixed with the sound of splashing water. She shouted, nearly breathless with delight. The look on Jake's face was priceless. He hesitated for a moment, fear and uncertainty wrestling inside him. But then, inspired by her joy, he climbed up onto the rock. He exclaimed. She shouted, grinning widely. With a shaky breath, he jumped, and for a moment it felt like everything was suspended in air. The rush, the thrill, the moment when he plummeted beside her into the creek. They emerged, laughter erupting from both of them, splashing and shoving like children again. The weight of everything, the school, the pressures, even the fear was washed away, leaving them feeling light. See, Emily teased, watching his face light up with genuine excitement. He shook his head, water flying everywhere. You're right. As they climbed out of the creek, the world felt alive around them, thick with anticipation and new beginnings. They had done it. They had taken the plunge together, and now they didn't just share a memory, they shared a bond. They strolled along the creek, their laughter echoing, tracing new paths and forging their way through the trees. The sun dipped lower, casting golden rays that painted the water in shimmering colors, but they were lost in their own world where everything felt electric and possible. Next summer, let's have more adventures like this, Jake suggested, a spark in his eyes. Emily agreed, her heart swelling with excitement. What if we travel somewhere together? Even better, let's make it a goal. Their pact hung in the air, the weight of their promises mingling with laughter and camaraderie. And as they wandered back down the trail, side by side, Emily felt a fluttering excitement blossom within her, a connection that had begun to transcend mere friendship. Each word exchanged, every glance shared, felt like the weaving of threads into the tapestry of something more significant. Together they walked toward the unknown, their hands resting casually close, the space between them buzzing with opportunities yet to unfold. They had leaped into uncertainty, faced their fears, and come out on the other side, bound by a shared moment that would echo in their hearts for years to come. The sun was setting behind them, casting a final warm glow over the park. It felt like an ending, and yet a beginning all at once, laying the groundwork for what lay ahead. And as they stepped closer to the path that would take them away from the creek, Emily knew this was just the start of their journey, one filled with dreams, unexpected adventures, and the promise of hands offered in times of need, forever intertwined on their incredible ride through life. The sun hung high in the sky, its golden rays dancing on the surface of the creek. Emily, deep in her thoughts, ambled along the familiar path of Maplewood Park, surrounded by the gentle rustle of leaves. She had come here to find peace, a refuge from the whirlwind of her chaotic life, but tranquility was quickly disrupted by a loud splash. She stopped in her tracks, squinting against the glare of the sun. Just ahead, Jake was struggling in the creek, arms flailing as he tried to catch a slippery fish. His laughter rang out like music over the bubbling water, infectious and carefree. She called, half laughing, half exasperated. Jake looked up, his grin stretching from ear to ear, his hair damp and wild. Hey, it's all about the technique. He lunged again, but the fish darted away, leaving him splashing in frustration. Emily shook her head, unable to suppress a smile. It was hard not to admire his enthusiasm, but she couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. Just then he lost his footing, slipping off the rock. Time slowed as she watched him tumble backward, arms flailing until he hit the water with a loud splash. Emily erupted into laughter, her worries evaporating like the mist rising from the creek. She shouted, still giggling as he resurfaced, sputtering and gasping for breath. Okay. He wiped the water from his eyes, looking both deranged and charming at the same time. but just as she leaned closer to the bank to get a better view, her foot slipped on the slick mud. In a heart-stopping instant, she felt the ground drop away. Panic coursed through her as she fell into the creek, the icy water engulfing her like a shocking embrace. With a gasp, all the air rushed from her lungs. She flailed desperately, struggling against the cold that wrapped around her like a vice. The current swirled violently, dragging her under, leaving her struggling for breath. Jake's voice cut through the water, sharp and urgent. She could barely see through the murky water, but his voice was a lifeline. Through instinct, she fought to swim, kicking and reaching for the surface. Just as she felt herself slipping away, she locked onto something solid, his hand. Jake shouted, pulling her closer. There was warmth in his grip, grounding her in the chaos. Together, they fought against the current, adrenaline surging as they clawed their way toward the bank. With a final burst of strength, Jake yanked her onto solid ground. They collapsed on the bank, gasping for air, soaked to the bone. His eyes were wide with concern, scanning her face for any sign of distress. Emily tried to catch her breath, shaking water from her hair. She choked out, half laughing, half sobbing. The realization of what had just happened settled in. He said, still catching his breath. She replied, her heart racing but a smile breaking through. "I think we both just made a splash," he said, a grin tugging at the corners of his mouth. Their laughter melded together, momentarily breaking the tension. But as they sat there in the fading light, there was an electrifying shift in the air. The playful banter turned lighter, all while something deeper simmered beneath the surface. "You know, today was supposed to be a chill day," she said after a moment, looking around at the beauty of the park bathed in golden hues. Jake replied, still watching her intently. Emily met his gaze, and for a brief moment she sensed something shifting. It wasn't just the adrenaline or the shock of falling. It felt deeper, like the world around them was expanding. "True, but I didn't plan on a near-death experience," she said, attempting to downplay the seriousness of it all. "Hey, you faced danger and lived to tell the tale," he encouraged, reflecting a warmth that made butterflies flutter in her stomach. Emily felt a rush of heat rise in her cheeks. "Or maybe you just haven't pushed your limits enough," he suggested, leaning closer, eyes sparkling. Emily's heart danced in her chest. Was he suggesting that her leap into the creek was about more than just a slip? He continued, the air thick with an unspoken understanding. Just then, a gust of wind rustled the branches overhead, and she could feel the weight of their conversation settling in. It felt tangible, almost like an unspoken promise, and everything around them faded, leaving just the two of them suspended in time. "Maybe you're right," she said quietly, "but it's scary, you know." Jake looked thoughtful for a moment, tilting his head as if weighing his words carefully. "You won't know unless you try," she whispered, almost tasting the word. It felt like a declaration, something that tugged at her heart. With the sun dipping lower, casting an amber glow over the creek, Emily suddenly felt bold. She asked, her heart racing with excitement. He teased, laughter bubbling at the edge of his voice. "Well, I was thinking of that big rock over there," she said, pointing to a large boulder that jutted precariously over the water. Jake's eyes widened in surprise, a mixture of excitement and nervousness flashing across his face. Replied with a grin. Jake hesitated, glancing at the rock and then at her. "Think of it as a test of courage," she declared, overwhelmed with a rush of adrenaline. "All right, I'll go after you," he said, half laughing, half challenging. With a burst of courage, Emily climbed up onto the rock, her heart pounding wildly. The view was breathtaking, the creek stretched out like a shimmering ribbon below. She looked down, and for a split second, doubt crept into her mind, but the thrill outweighed her fears. Jake called, joining her on the rock and stepping closer. She shouted back, her heart racing. As she leapt, the wind rushed past, and for a moment she felt weightless, like she was flying through the air. The ground rushed up to meet her, and she hit the water with a splash, sending a cloud of droplets exploding outward. Then her body immersed into the cool embrace of the creek. When she surfaced, laughter bubbled from her lips as she gasped for air. She shouted, feeling freer than she had in ages. Jake emerged a second later, his hair slicked back and that unmistakable grin lighting up his face. He swam closer, water splashing around them. "We should do that again." Their adrenaline pulsed through them both, a thrilling rush tethering them together. "You think you can outdo me?" Emily laughed. As they splashed playfully in the creek, the worries of the world faded entirely away. The air felt charged with the promise of summer and the thrill of newfound adventure. They pushed each other to be braver, to dive deeper. After a few more jumps and playful splashing, they finally swam back to the bank, both breathless and exhilarated. "We should make this our thing," Jake said, his eyes sparkling. "Yes," she responded, exhilaration buzzing through her entire being. For a moment they just stood there, water dripping from them as the sun dipped lower behind the trees. Emily felt a warmth blossom inside her, realizing how much Jake's energy ignited something special within her. She had always admired him, but had never truly seen him until now. Jake asked, a playful glint in his eyes. "Maybe we could," she suggested, feeling excitement ripple through her. "Or try rock climbing," Jake agreed, nodding enthusiastically. Just then a gentle breeze swept through the clearing, rustling the leaves and creating a calming sound that enveloped them. The world around them felt magical, alive with possibility as they stood on the brink of a summer filled with adventure and friendship. With each shared laugh, the bond between them deepened, pulling them closer, like roots intertwining beneath the surface. It was more than just friendly competition. It was about two souls meeting at a pivotal moment. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over their skin, they gathered their belongings, the air filled with whispers of promises and dreams yet to be realized. Emily felt something shift within her, a flicker of hope ignited because in Jake's eyes she saw understanding and the potential for more. He asked, playful yet serious. She replied, feeling the palpable energy between them. And as they walked back down the trail, side by side, every laugh, every shared glance felt charged, filled with unspoken possibilities. The creek bubbled behind them, a witness to a new beginning. Emily felt hope surge in her chest. She had taken risks today that had led her to unexpected joys, and perhaps this was just the beginning of countless more adventures. They forged ahead into the dusk, hand in hand, the reminder that sometimes all it takes is a leap into the unknown to discover extraordinary moments and the courage to embrace an unfolding journey filled with the magic of friendship and possibility. The sun was high above Maplewood Park, its warmth wrapping around everything like a soft blanket. A peaceful afternoon in early summer, golden light filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the ground. Emily walked along the creek, the soft sounds of water gently flowing over stones providing a soothing backdrop. This was her escape, a place where she could often find clarity amid the chaos of school life and expectations. Today she needed that peace more than ever. As she wandered deeper into the park, her thoughts drifted. She had just finished finals, and while many celebrated freedom, she felt the weight of uncertainty heavy on her heart. What came next? What were her plans after graduation? Questions floated through her mind like the leaves that danced around her in the breeze. But then, a sudden loud splash shattered her thoughts. Curious, she hurried to the water's edge where she saw him, Jake, the boy from school, the one everyone knew for his effortless charm and easy laughter. He was knee-deep in the creek, trying to catch fish with his bare hands, oblivious to everything else. "Hey, Jake," she called out, a teasing smile on her lips. "Come on, Em," he called back, determination etched on his face. Emily couldn't help but chuckle as she watched him flail his arms around. Just then, with a loud yelp, he lost his footing on a slick rock and went crashing backward into the water. The sight was so comical that she burst out laughing, the tension in her chest easing for the first time in weeks. But her laughter quickly turned to concern as she leaned over the bank, the ground beneath her shifting unexpectedly. In an instant, she lost her balance and tumbled down, plunging into the icy water next to him. Shock engulfed her. The cold gripped her like a vice. Gasped, her heart racing as panic surged. The water tugged at her, pulling her under, and for a moment she thought she might not surface again. Jake's voice pierced through the chaos. Desperation fueled her strength. She fought against the current, her limbs flailing as she struggled to resurface. And then amidst the swirling water, she saw him, his hand reaching out, warm and steady against the shock of the creek. With all her strength, she reached for him, fingers tightening around his as he pulled her toward him. "I've got you," he shouted, his voice firm and reassuring. They struggled against the icy grip of the creek together. Entrusted to him, they fought to find solid ground. With one final surge, Jake yanked her up onto the bank, both of them collapsing in a heap of gasps and laughter, hearts pounding. He asked, concern etched in his features as he looked her over. "I think so," she managed between breaths, remnants of panic still sending adrenaline through her veins. Jake chuckled, wiping water from his face. Her cheeks flushed, and she couldn't help but smile back, the brief moment of fear dissolving into shared laughter. The world felt oddly lighter now. They both lay there for a moment, the sun filtering through the trees above, golden light casting a warm glow over their drenched forms. Emily teased, propping herself up on one elbow, feeling a connection growing just beneath the surface of their playful banter. Jake replied, still grinning as he shook his soaked hair like a dog. She exclaimed. As they took a moment to compose themselves, Emily felt something shift, a flicker of something more than just friendship. She had always admired Jake from a distance, but now, seeing him this way, the jovial laughter sparking a deeper connection, was new and exciting. "Let's turn this soggy day into an adventure," she suggested boldly, surprise radiating through her. Jake's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Are you serious? Come on, Jake," she said, feeling an unexpected thrill rise within her. He hesitated, glancing at the rock and then back at her, uncertainty etched on his face. She prodded, her voice playful yet full of conviction. After a moment of contemplation, Jake flashed a grin. "All right." With a determined nod, Emily climbed out of the creek and made her way to the boulder. The view from the top was exhilarating. The water below sparkled like crushed jewels, and she could hear the gentle rush of the creek. The world around her felt alive. She called down, heart racing as she looked back at Jake. He shouted back, a mix of excitement and fear in his voice. With one last deep breath, she leaped from the rock. Time slowed as she felt herself flying through the air, the wind rushing against her skin. And then splash, she collided with the water, coolness enveloping her like a gentle hug. When she surfaced, laughter poured from her lips, a mix of joy and adrenaline. she shouted. Jake followed suit soon after, his jump powerful and exhilarating. As he hit the water beside her, his laughter echoed through the valley, pure and free. He exclaimed, catching her eye, energy crackling in the air between them as they splashed around, their spirits buoyed by the shared thrill. Emily felt alive, invigorated by the rush of the moment. They spent the next few moments fooling around, playfully pushing each other in and out of the water, laughter ringing out like music. In that blissful escape, their worries faded away, leaving only the simple joy of their friendship. But as the sun began to set, casting a vivid orange and pink palette across the sky, Emily suddenly became aware of the chill creeping into the air. The carefree excitement morphed into a slight unease. What was she feeling? It felt like something was on the brink of changing, something profound. "We should get out of the water before we turn into popsicles," Jake said, wiping water from his face. The laughter faded as they both stepped back onto the bank, the realization of what they had just experienced sinking in. As they stood together, drenched and muddy, Emily caught a glimpse of something new in Jake's eyes, an unspoken connection that made her heart race with possibilities. "I'm glad you were here today," she said, searching his gaze. "Hey, that's what friends are for," he replied, but there was something deeper in his tone, a flicker of something unspoken between them that sent sparks through the air. They both stood there for a moment, the night wrapping around them like a warm embrace. Jake stepped a little closer, breaking the distance with a friendly nudge, but the tension lingered, a mix of friendship and something more, waiting to be explored. "Let's make a pact," he said, suddenly serious, "to have more adventures like this." "I'm in," she replied without hesitation, her heart swelling at the thought. "Good," he proclaimed, an exuberant grin stretching across his face once more. They both laughed, but Emily felt her insides twist in unexpected ways. Could they really be more than just friends? Could something unique grow between them? She found herself wanting to explore that possibility. As they began to head back along the creek, each step felt charged with new energy. They exchanged playful banter, laughter cutting through the cool evening air, and the weight of the world fell away. But as they approached their bikes parked on the trail, the atmosphere shifted. Echoes of their laughter faded, replaced by a sense of uncertainty. It was time to part ways, to return to their separate lives, and the thrill of the day loomed in the background, tinged with the reality of the coming week. Jake asked, his voice softening. Emily felt her heart thump. "Definitely," he said, sincerity glimmering in his eyes. He gestured to the creek, she teased, though her heart raced at the thought. "Maybe I am," Jake shot back, a challenging look dancing on his face. The moment stretched, hanging in the air between them, his words charged with promise, her heart pounding with hope. She felt it then, clear and sharp, a line they were both about to cross. "Yeah, I would like that," she said, feeling bold, the words tumbling out before she could second-guess herself. Jake smiled widely, relief and joy mingling in his expression. Cool. But just as they stepped back from the brink of something special, a sudden noise echoed through the park, a sharp crack followed by rustling in the bushes nearby. Their laughter died instantly, replaced by a creeping unease. Emily whispered, her heart racing again, this time from fear. Jake glanced toward the noise, tension radiating from him. Before they could react, another loud sound erupted, and the bushes began to shake violently. The clear summer evening shifted into something darker, foreboding. Emily murmured, eyes wide with uncertainty. And then out of the bushes leaped a figure. Their hearts raced and instincts kicked in. They took a wary step back, uncertainty hanging thick in the air. In that moment, standing together, adrenaline coursing through them, they were faced with something unexpected, something that threatened to change the course of their budding connection. As the figure stepped closer, both Emily and Jake knew that their lives were about to take a turn they never anticipated.